A dark, intense, post-apocalyptic survival thriller blending political drama, urban horror, and psychological warfare. Hello, survivors. Thanks for tuning in. Your support keeps this story alive. Don't forget to subscribe and join our growing survivor community. Drop your city in the comments, and let's begin the story. The morning had begun like any other Thursday, bleached in the pale sunlight that rolled through the windows of West Hill High. Collins Brooks sat half-slouched at his desk, tracing the faint scratches carved into the wooden surface by years of restless students. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and chalk, the familiar, sterile perfume of routine. Outside, the football field shimmered under the sun, still wet from the sprinklers. Isaac's elementary school just across the street was ending recess. Collins had spotted him earlier, tiny, bright, waving across the fence before vanishing into the classroom again. It was the kind of ordinary sight that glued his world together. Mrs. Green was speaking at the front, something about tectonic plates. Collins wasn't listening. His mind was still half on the essay he hadn't finished, half on the strange streaks in the sky. He'd noticed them that morning. Thin, crooked lines, too low for planes, too fast for clouds. Now one of them had thickened, a silver smudge, dragging a thread of smoke. "Brooks?" Mrs. Green's voice cut through the haze. "If California sits on the San Andreas Fault, what does that make it vulnerable to?" Earthquakes?" he said automatically. "Good. Try staying with us, please." She smiled, but the corners of her mouth twitched, like she too was uneasy. A low rumble vibrated through the windows. Everyone looked up. It wasn't thunder. It came again, longer this time, a heavy growl rolling across the sky. Collins craned his neck toward the window. The silver smudge had grown into a shape now, dark, heavy, falling too fast. "Whoa!" someone whispered. Mrs. Green walked to the glass. "Everyone stay seated." The shape split. One part disintegrated in a bloom of light. The other plunged straight down. The sound hit a second later, an impossible concussive roar that tore through the walls. Desks rattled, glass exploded, and screams filled the room. The blast threw Collins to the floor, dust raining from the ceiling. Then silence. The kind of silence that follows shock. Collins coughed, eyes burning. The floor vibrated as aftershocks rolled beneath them. Somewhere too close, something was burning, thick, chemical smoke that clawed down the throat. He staggered up, ears ringing. Mrs. Green was already herding students toward the hallway. "Move! Everyone out! Stay together!" Outside, the world was chaos. The football field was no longer a field. It was a cratered inferno. A plane, or what was left of it, lay torn open like a crushed insect, its tail jutting from the ground. Black smoke bled into the sky. Shards of metal littered the playground. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance, then cut off abruptly. "Collins!" someone shouted. It was Mrs. Green, gripping his arm. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, dazed. "My brother, Isaac, he's across the street." Her expression tightened. "Stay with the group." But Collins was already running. The air outside was thick with ash. He could feel heat radiating off the asphalt as he sprinted across the yard and out through the broken fence. The elementary school was a scene from a nightmare. Windows shattered, children screaming, teachers dragging them away from falling debris. A piece of the plane's wing had torn through the playground, flames licking its edge. He caught sight of Isaac's classroom, Building B. Half the roof was gone. "Isaac!" he yelled, voice raw. "Isaac!" A child stumbled from the doorway, covered in dust and blood that wasn't his, not Isaac. Collins grabbed his shoulders. "Where's Isaac Brooks?" The boy pointed back toward the hall. "He went to look for you." Collins froze. chest tightening. He turned toward the corridor and saw it, smoke seeping out, flickers of fire crawling along the ceiling tiles. He forced himself forward. The hall was an oven. The fluorescent lights hung at odd angles, popping one by one. Through the haze he saw movement, people coughing, stumbling, their faces slick with soot. One teacher tried to open a fire door, but it was jammed. Collins pushed past, shouting Isaac's name again. He found him near the end of the hall, small and trembling beside a toppled water fountain. His arm was scraped, but he was alive. "Collins!" Isaac's voice broke when he saw his brother. "I couldn't find you." Collins kneeled, gripping his shoulders. "You're okay. We have to move. The roof's going to come down." He pulled Isaac close, and together they stumbled through the corridor, choking on smoke. A siren wailed from outside, one of the emergency alarms. Collins saw flashes of uniforms through the shattered windows, paramedics, firefighters, maybe soldiers. For a moment, he thought they were saved. Then came the screams. Not frightened ones, something else. Animal. Collins froze. A woman was running across the yard, her body convulsing as if something inside her was tearing free. She fell, spasming, and then she rose again. Her eyes were milk white, her skin turning gray where the smoke touched it. She lunged at the nearest man. He tried to push her off, but she bit into his neck hard and didn't stop. Blood spattered the wall. The crowd panicked. More of them started changing. Teachers, students, anyone close to the crash. Some vomited black fluid. Others screamed until their throats split. Collins grabbed Isaac and ducked behind a bus. "What's happening?" Isaac cried. Collins didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind refused to accept it. The woman was still there, gnawing at the man's shoulder while his body twitched. A second one joined her, dragging its broken leg behind it like a marionette. Then the wind shifted. The smell hit them. Rot and acid, metallic and burning. Collins gagged. "Don't look," he whispered. But Isaac already had. Fire trucks tried to push through the wreckage, their lights cutting through smoke. A group of soldiers spilled out of a black van, shouting commands, aiming rifles toward the crash. Collins peeked out just as one of them fired. The infected woman's head jerked back, but she didn't fall. She kept coming, fast. They shot again and again until half her face was gone. Still, she moved. "Inside," Collins hissed, pulling Isaac toward the gym building. They slipped through the emergency door and collapsed behind the bleachers. The floor trembled again, a new explosion outside. Maybe fuel tanks, maybe something worse. Collins pressed Isaac's head against his shoulder, trying to block out the screams. He remembered his phone. It was cracked, but working. He tried to call his mom. No signal. Tried 911. Nothing. The bars flickered, then vanished completely. Outside, the gunfire stopped. Only the wind and a low, distant moan filled the silence. Collins risked a glance through the broken window. The yard was littered with bodies, some still, some twitching. A firefighter crawled on his knees, blood trailing behind him. Then slowly, he began to stand again, head tilting at an unnatural angle. Collins felt the air leave his lungs. Isaac whispered, "Are they dead?" He swallowed. "They should be." The fire alarm blared, shrill and endless. Collins grabbed Isaac's hand and led him toward the back exit. They had to get away from the crash, away from whatever was spreading. As they reached the door, a shadow stumbled in front of them. Mr. Harlow, the school security officer. His uniform was torn, one sleeve soaked in blood. "Stay inside," he barked. His voice was raw, urgent. "What's happening?" Collins asked. Harlow glanced over his shoulder toward the smoke. "You don't want to know. Just stay low, stay quiet." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a key ring. "If anyone comes through that door and they're not talking, run. Don't wait." He locked the door from the outside and disappeared into the chaos. Isaac clutched his brother's arm. Why did he lock us in?" Collins didn't answer. He pressed his ear to the metal door. He could hear them out there, wet footsteps dragging across concrete, the rasp of breath that didn't sound human. The lights flickered and went out. The gym fell into darkness. Collins' heartbeat filled his ears. He could hear Isaac's soft sobs beside him. Somewhere distant, the intercom crackled, a half-broken voice repeating something over and over. Shelter in place. Biological hazard. Do not. Then the sound cut to static. Collins' hands shook. He wasn't old enough to handle this. He wasn't strong enough. But Isaac's hand in his own felt so small, so fragile, and that was enough to keep him breathing. He whispered, "We'll get out of here, I promise." A crash echoed from the far end of the gym, metal against glass. Something had come inside.
The gym was a tomb. Shadows clawed at the corners, stretching unnaturally across the scorched floor. Collins pressed his back against the bleachers, feeling Isaac's small frame tremble against him. The smell of smoke, blood, and something far fouler lingered, clinging to their clothes, their hair, their skin. Each breath burned. A low, wet scratching came from the opposite side of the gym, followed by a groan that wasn't human. Collins forced his mind to focus. He could not panic, not with Isaac here, not with Isaac depending on him. The door shuddered, wood splintered, a low, guttural hiss filled the room. Collins grabbed a broken broom handle lying nearby, his knuckles white. The thing at the door moaned again, a distorted, half-human sound that made his stomach turn. Its shadow stretched grotesquely across the floor, limbs jerking like broken puppets. Isaac buried his face into Collins's chest. "It's coming!" Collins swallowed the bile in his throat. "Stay down. Stay quiet." The thing tested the door, pushing and scratching. Then, impossibly, it began to tear the lock with unnatural strength. Collins swung the broom handle. Metal screeched as it hit, but the creature's arm barely flinched. Panic clawed at him. He had to think. "Isaac! Under the bleachers! Now!" he hissed. He shoved him down just as the door burst inward, splintered wood raining down. The first of them stepped in. Teacher, student, someone Collins had known. Their skin had gray patches, eyes milky and blank. Their mouth opened, revealing jagged teeth slick with blood. Collins swung the broom handle with all his might, connecting with a shoulder. The creature stumbled, letting out a wet, guttural scream. Collins's heart hammered. He couldn't stop. He swung again, striking the head. The thing fell, but twitched violently on the floor. More of them poured in, drawn by the sound. Collins grabbed Isaac, pulling him along the sidewall, slipping between overturned bleachers and scorched banners. Smoke stung his eyes, and the smell of burning plastic and charred wood mixed with the copper tang of blood. His mind raced for escape routes. Through the doors at the far end. "We have to go. Now."
Isaac's small hand was slippery with sweat, but he followed, stumbling over debris. Collins caught him mid-fall, barely avoiding a pile of broken chairs. The moans followed them, echoing off the metal walls, growing louder. They reached the double doors leading outside, only to find chaos. The yard was a graveyard of metal and bodies. The plane's wreck smoldered, its wings twisted like the limbs of fallen giants. Children ran screaming, some pursued by the infected, others crawling over debris in panic. Collins's stomach turned as he recognized a girl from his homeroom, her eyes blank as she dragged another student across the asphalt. He pulled Isaac behind a fallen section of bleachers, crouching low. The boy's chest heaved. Collins realized he hadn't breathed properly in over a minute. He glanced around. Smoke and fire blurred his vision. Sirens screamed in the distance, but nothing moved toward them, except the things. They were fast, too fast. Collins knew instinctively the infected didn't feel pain, didn't tire. Any loud noise would draw them. Any mistake would be death. He spotted a small gap in the fence leading to the alley beside the school. "We go through there," he whispered. "Hold on." Isaac nodded, fear in his wide eyes. Collins took his hand and led him toward the gap. A scream tore through the yard. Collins's head snapped toward it. A man was being dragged, kicking and screaming into the wreckage. One of the creatures had latched on to him. Collins turned back to Isaac. No time to help anyone. He could not. Survival meant moving. Moving now. The alley was narrow, littered with trash cans and overturned garbage. Smoke and ash choked the space. Collins felt every heartbeat in his chest, every tremor in his knees. Isaac's small hand in his own was his tether to reality. He would not let go.
They rounded a corner and froze. Ahead, 3 infected blocked the path. Their eyes flicked toward the brothers. One jerked its head unnaturally, moaning. Collins could smell decay and rot, feel the heat of their presence. His mind raced. He scanned the surroundings, pipes along the wall, a pile of bricks, a metal fence to climb. He grabbed a brick and hurled it past the creatures. The noise drew their attention, heads snapping toward the sound. Collins pulled Isaac up the fence. The boy's fingers slipped once, and Collins caught him just in time. They fell onto the roof of a small shed behind the alley. Collins' chest burned. He could hear the moans below, the scrambling feet of the things hunting him. Isaac pressed against him, shaking. "It's okay," Collins whispered. "We're almost out." But almost had never felt so distant. The city around them was collapsing. Fires dotted the skyline, smoke twisting into dark columns. Distant explosions rattled buildings. Helicopters tried to fly above, but sirens and gunfire cut through the air. Chaos was everywhere, and survival depended on nothing more than instinct and luck. They scrambled down the shed's other side, landing in a narrow courtyard between 2 abandoned buildings. Collins dragged Isaac behind a dumpster as a shadow fell across the open space. Another infected, a janitor from the school, he realized, moved unnaturally, stepping over fallen bodies, head tilting, mouth working silently. Collins gritted his teeth. He could not look, could not imagine, could not cry. He led Isaac through the building's side door, finding a classroom that had survived relatively intact. Desks were overturned, chalkboards cracked, but the door was barricadable. Collins pushed tables against it, throwing anything heavy he could find. Isaac helped, small hands trembling but determined. "Good," Collins said between shallow breaths. "This will hold, for now." He looked around the room. Mrs. Green crouched in the corner, her blouse torn, face streaked with soot and blood, helping 2 younger students who were terrified into hiding. Her eyes met Collins's. Relief and horror mingled in her gaze. "You found him," she said quietly. "Thank God." "Yes," Collins whispered. He sank to the floor, holding Isaac close. We need to survive the night." Mrs. Green nodded. "We'll stay together. Keep quiet. Stay calm." Collins closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the world outside. The moans, the distant explosions, the crackle of fire. Smoke seeped under the windows, carrying the metallic tang of blood and ash. Isaac pressed against him. "Will they get us?"
Collins kissed the top of his brother's head, inhaling his scent, the faint soap and baby powder still clinging to him. "Not if I can help it. I promise, Isaac. I'll protect you, no matter what." The barricade groaned as something thudded against the door. Collins tightened his grip on the broom handle he'd brought, knuckles white. Outside, the infected scratched and tried to pry open the makeshift wall. One slammed against the door and let out a terrible, wet howl. Collins' stomach churned. He could hear the screams of children outside, the sound of teachers falling, the grinding teeth and wet, hungry moans. Fear clung to him like a second skin. But inside the room, Isaac's small hand found his own. A surge of resolve burned through him. He would not fail, not now, not ever. The sounds outside grew closer. The night had only begun, and Collins knew, with a sick certainty, that nothing would ever be the same.
Darkness had fallen, but it was no ordinary night. The city outside the classroom windows had transformed into a living nightmare. Fires smoldered in distant streets, casting flickering shadows that danced across broken walls. The air was thick with smoke, choking, heavy with the stench of burnt metal, ash, and blood. Every so often, a low groan floated up from the hallway outside, a sound that made Collins' stomach knot, his pulse hammer. He had barricaded the door with desks and chairs, but he knew it was temporary. The infected were strong, unnatural, relentless. The sound of scratching at the wood made him flinch. Behind him, Isaac shivered, eyes wide, clutching his small backpack as though it were a lifeline. "Isaac, look at me," Collins whispered, voice trembling despite his effort to stay steady. The boy's eyes met his. "We stay together, no matter what." Isaac nodded, and for a moment Collins felt a fragile thread of hope, but the world outside was collapsing. Mrs. Green crouched against the far wall, rubbing her hands together to stay warm, guiding a younger student who sobbed quietly. Her face was streaked with soot and blood, but her eyes remained sharp, alert. "We have to be silent," she said softly. "They're listening." Collins pressed his ear to the door. A moan, low and guttural, rolled through the hallway. Another scratch, then a wet, dragging sound. One of the infected was prowling the corridor, a teacher he recognized, twisted beyond recognition, feeding on whatever unlucky survivor had crossed her path. Collins swallowed hard, forcing himself to look away from the window. He had to focus. Survival depended on calm. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its meaning. The classroom became a small, fragile island of humanity amid a sea of chaos. Collins kept Isaac close, whispering instructions: "Keep quiet, stay down, don't move." Isaac's fingers gripped his own, trembling. Every now and then, the boy whispered, "Isaac, I'm scared." Collins' chest tightened. He had never felt fear like this, not for himself, but for Isaac. Every instinct screamed that the world outside would consume them if he faltered. He stroked Isaac's hair, murmuring reassurance, though his own throat was dry and raw.
The first tragedy came without warning. A crash from the far corner of the room. The barricade shifted, and one of the younger children screamed. Mrs. Green was there instantly, grabbing the boy and dragging him behind her. A scraping sound at the door grew louder, sharper. Collins's grip tightened on the broom handle. "Stay down," he whispered. The door rattled violently. Something heavy slammed into it. The walls shuddered. Collins's heart thudded in his ears. Smoke from the fires outside crept in through cracks, stinging his eyes. The moans grew louder, echoing off the walls. Each one sounded closer than the last. Then came the smell, the metallic tang of blood, thick and cloying. Collins gagged. He could feel it on his skin, in his hair. Isaac whimpered, pressing his face into Collins's shoulder. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. Not for Isaac, not now. Mrs. Green hissed, "They can sense fear. Don't let them hear you." Collins tried to steady his breathing. He focused on Isaac's tiny body pressed against his own. The boy was alive. That was enough, for now. Through the thin slats of the boarded-up windows, Collins saw movement. Shadows darted between the flames outside. He recognized shapes, students and teachers, some still human, others not. Their limbs twitched in unnatural jerks, heads cocking at angles that made his stomach lurch. One moved toward the building, dragging another body, its mouth coated in black fluid. Collins swallowed bile. He could not look. He had to plan. "We need to move before they break through," he whispered to Mrs. Green. She nodded, eyes scanning the room. "There's a supply closet. We can barricade ourselves there if it comes down to it. It's smaller, easier to defend." Collins looked at Isaac. "Can you move quietly?" Isaac nodded, but his lips trembled. Collins held him close, guiding him toward the back of the classroom. Every step was a delicate maneuver. The sound of scratching at the barricade made them freeze in place more than once. A sudden crash of wood and screams from the hallway froze Collins in terror. One of the infected had breached the next room over. The sound of metal snapping, furniture crashing, and human screams filled the air. Collins gritted his teeth, forcing himself forward. They had no choice. Move or die.
The barricade groaned under the weight of the pounding outside. Collins pressed himself against the wall, broom handle gripped like a lifeline. Isaac's small body shaking against him. The moans were louder now, closer, impossibly fast, wet and ragged, scraping against the wooden boards that barely held them back. A splintered section of the door gave way. A hand, gray, twitching, covered in blood, slipped through. Collins swung the broom with all his strength, connecting with a wet, sickening crack. The thing screeched, but the sound only drew more attention. The hallways were alive now, a tide of distorted figures, snapping and moaning. Mrs. Green was already moving, pushing the younger students behind a row of desks. Her eyes met Collins for a fleeting second. There was fear there, yes, but also steel. "We're getting out," she said, voice low but unwavering. "You two, follow me, now!" Collins clutched Isaac's hand and ran, hearts hammering, lungs burning. They slipped through the smoke-choked hall, ducking over fallen beams and broken tiles. Every corner held potential death. Groans came from the gym, from classrooms, from the corridors above. Everywhere the infected prowled, relentless. Collins forced himself to focus, ignoring the panic clawing at his stomach. Suddenly, the fire alarm blared again, shrill and unforgiving. Collins' ears rang, his vision blurred, but he didn't hesitate. He yanked Isaac down behind a toppled table. Through the haze, he saw the first of them, the pale, milk-eyed children and teachers who had turned in minutes, stumbling toward them, their heads tilted, limbs jerking unnaturally, mouths opening in silent screams. Collins swung the broom handle, striking one in the chest. It fell, but twitched violently on the ground. Another approached. He struck again, each blow fueled by desperation, by fear, by the primal need to protect his brother. "Collins!" Isaac's voice broke through his panic. "We can't stop them!" "I know," Collins shouted, yanking him along. "Keep moving!" They reached the gym's back exit, only to find it blocked by fire. Flames licking the broken concrete and metal. Smoke surged, black and suffocating. Collins grabbed Isaac and stumbled back into the hallway. Mrs. Green, ever vigilant, shoved the younger children ahead, taking the rear. "Go! Move!" Then it happened. The barricade, stretched and weakened, collapsed under the weight of the relentless creatures. Collins could only watch as Mrs. Green met the first wave. She fought with everything she had, slashing, shoving, screaming. But there were too many. One grabbed her arm, sinking teeth into her shoulder. She screamed, a sharp, horrifying sound, and then it was over. She shoved the remaining children forward one last time before collapsing. Colin's stomach sank.
She shoved the remaining children forward one last time before collapsing. Colin's stomach sank. "No!" he roared, lunging, but it was too late. She was gone, pulled into the mass of moaning figures, her sacrifice keeping the path open just long enough for Collins and Isaac to flee. Isaac clutched his brother's arm. She saved us," he whispered, voice trembling. Collins swallowed the lump in his throat. "Yes, and we survive because of her. That's what we have to do." They ran, lungs burning, eyes stinging from smoke. The school behind them was a maze of fire and destruction. Outside, the world had gone mad. The streets were littered with debris, abandoned cars, overturned trash cans. Shadows moved, some human, some not. Collins led Isaac through alleys, through gaps in fences, dodging the creatures that stumbled blindly after the sound of their footsteps. At one point, a body fell in front of them, convulsing, turning to lurch at them with unnatural speed. Collins swung a pipe he had found, striking it again and again until it finally stopped twitching. Isaac vomited, and Collins' heart clenched. He wiped his brother's mouth, forcing him to move. "We don't stop," he whispered. "We can't keep moving." Hours passed, or was it minutes? Time had fractured. The night was endless. Sirens wailed in the distance, punctuated by explosions and the sound of gunfire. Fires spread unchecked, their glow reflecting off shattered windows and metal frames. Collins could smell the city burning. Plastic, gasoline, wood, and something far fouler. They found temporary refuge in a partially collapsed building, crouching behind a wall of rubble. Isaac curled into him, exhausted, trembling, eyes wide and unblinking. Collins wrapped his arms around his brother, holding him close, whispering promises he hoped he could keep. Outside, the infected prowled, their low, guttural moans echoing across the streets. Collins could feel them in his bones, relentless and patient. The night stretched on, and he knew this was only the beginning. Finally, as smoke and ash filled the air, the first light of dawn began to pierce the horizon. The fire had consumed much of the school and surrounding streets. The city was a ruin of ash and flame. Collins looked down at Isaac, pale and trembling, but alive. "We made it through the night," he whispered, voice hoarse, tears streaking his face. "We survived, and I promised I'll protect you no matter what. That's still my promise." Isaac murmured, You kept your promise." The two brothers clung to each other as the city burned around them, knowing that the dawn was not salvation, only another stage of survival. Behind them lay death, sacrifice, and a school that was no longer a place of learning, but a tomb and a battlefield. Ahead lay the streets of a collapsing city, the moral dilemmas and horrors of humanity gone mad.
and the next night they would have to face. The first night had ended, but Collins knew this was only the beginning.
The city had died while they slept. Collins stepped over a fallen street lamp, its wires sparking, illuminating the twisted skeleton of a city once alive. Smoke rolled from buildings like black waves, curling through shattered windows and burned-out doors. The smell of ash, blood, and burning plastic clung to the air, stinging his lungs. Isaac clung to his hand, small and trembling, his backpack swinging against his side. Collins had learned quickly. There was no safe path. Every street corner could conceal the dead, every alleyway a trap. He led Isaac through abandoned cars and overturned trash bins, the muffled moans of the infected echoing through the empty streets. Each shadow made his pulse quicken. Every twitch of movement set his body on edge. "They're everywhere," Isaac whispered, voice shaking. "I know," Collins said quietly, scanning the streets ahead. "We just keep moving. Don't stop." They passed a storefront, its glass shattered, mannequins slumped like corpses, the floor slick with black liquid. Collins caught the reflection of movement in the glass. A group of humans, or what was left of them, fought over supplies. A man raised a metal pipe and swung, crushing another's skull. Collins swallowed hard. Survival wasn't only about the infected. Humanity had begun to devour itself. He grabbed Isaac's arm. "We don't fight them, not unless we have to." The boy nodded, wide-eyed, as they ducked behind a dumpster. Collins' mind churned. The night had been horrific, but this city, broken and bleeding, was worse. Everywhere he looked, people were scavenging, fighting, dying, or becoming something unrecognizable. It was a moral wasteland. He skirted past a group of looters dragging a body. Collins' stomach twisted. The person was barely alive, bitten and screaming. Another swung a crowbar, smashing the victim's head with a wet crack. Collins turned Isaac away. His little brother's sobs pierced him more than the screams outside. We have to get to the coast," Collins whispered. "It's our only chance." Isaac nodded, lips trembling. Will there be people there?" "I don't know," Collins admitted. "But it'll be better than here." The streets twisted into narrower alleys. Broken street signs hung like dying trees over their heads. The moans of the infected grew closer. Collins motioned Isaac to crouch behind a pile of rubble. He peered through a crack, spotting a trio of infected staggering towards them. Limbs jerking, heads cocked at impossible angles. Collins swallowed and considered his options: fight, run, or hide. Hiding was temporary. The city didn't forgive hesitation. He picked up a broken pipe. If they were discovered, he would have to fight. The first one lurched toward the alley, sensing them. Collins swung with all his strength. The creature stumbled but kept coming. He swung again, striking its skull with a sickening wet crack. The thing collapsed, twitching. He grabbed Isaac's hand. "Move!" They ran, the sound of distant gunfire echoing across the streets. Soldiers, or what was remained of them, were trying to enforce order, but Collins saw quickly. It was chaos. Some soldiers shot civilians indiscriminately. Others abandoned their posts entirely. Humanity was as dangerous as the infected. A flash of white hair and a lab coat caught his attention. Someone staggered from the debris, limping heavily, carrying a blood-stained notebook. Collins' stomach tightened. The man looked terrified, but alive. He approached cautiously. "Please, don't hurt me," the man gasped. Collins kept Isaac close, but stepped forward. "My name's Collins," he said. "We're just trying to get to the coast." The man's eyes darted to Isaac, then back. You have to listen to me," he said, voice shaking. "The plane, the crash, it's not what it seems. You can't trust anyone wearing military insignia. Don't go near." anyone claiming to help. Colin's mind raced. Who are you? Dr. Vega. I survived the crash. The virus, it's engineered. They want it contained. They don't care who dies. Collins looked at Isaac, whose small hand tightened around his own. He felt the weight of responsibility like a physical force. He had to protect his brother, but now the moral complexity of survival clawed at him. Not everyone could be trusted. Not anyone. Dr. Vega clutched his notebook. He said, "Take this," pressing it into Colin's hands. "It's proof, evidence. You'll need it. You must get to the coast. That's the only chance to survive." The distant moans grew louder. Collins glanced at the alley entrance. Infected were approaching, drawn by sound. Without a second thought, he grabbed Isaac, dragging him along behind the doctor. They slipped into the shadowed street, past overturned cars and flaming debris. They paused behind a crumbling brick wall. Collins looked at Dr. Vega. "Why help us?" The man's eyes were haunted. "Because someone has to." Collins' mind reeled. This wasn't just survival now. It was evidence, a mission, responsibility. They had no choice but to move. Through smoke, debris, and the ever-present threat of the dead, Collins led Isaac forward. Every step was calculated. Every shadow could hide death. Every human could be a threat. The city groaned around them, a sick, twisting labyrinth of collapse. Collins realized survival wasn't just escaping the infected. It was navigating a world where morality was as fragile as the buildings crumbling around them.
The streets had become a battlefield. Collins led Isaac and Dr. Vega through the skeletal remains of the city, each step punctuated by the crunch of broken glass and debris. Fires burned unchecked, painting the buildings in flickering orange light. Smoke stung their eyes, filled their lungs, and made each breath a struggle. The moans of the infected echoed between the walls, mingling with screams of humans who were no longer distinguishable from the monsters. Collins kept Isaac close, one arm around him, the other gripping a rusted pipe. Every corner held the potential for death. Every shadow could conceal the hungry. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like a stone. He could not afford hesitation, not for Isaac, not for Dr. Vega, not for himself. A group of looters appeared around a bend, young men wielding crowbars and bats, their faces streaked with grime and desperation. One held a knife to the throat of a fallen survivor, demanding supplies. Collins's stomach twisted. Humanity had begun to prey upon itself. He considered hiding, sneaking past, but then the survivors spotted them. "Stop! Wait!" one of the looters shouted. Collins shoved Isaac behind him, instincts kicking in. "We don't want trouble," he yelled. But the alley was narrow, and escape was limited. The looters hesitated, assessing. Then, without warning, a shot rang out from across the street. One of the looters fell, a spray of blood splattering the walls. The others panicked, scattering into side alleys. Collins grabbed Isaac, heart hammering, and ran after Dr. Vega, who was already moving toward the shadowed remnants of a burned-out building. The chaos was unrelenting. Collapsed scaffolding blocked their path. A car had caught fire, flames leaping high, threatening to trap them. Collins guided Isaac around the flames, his own hands blistering from contact with hot metal. Each step forward was a gamble, every second a test of instinct. A sudden groan drew his attention. From the shadows, 3 infected emerged, drawn to the scent of blood and fear. Their heads tilted at impossible angles, limbs jerking as they advanced. Collins swung the pipe, striking the first in the head. It fell, but twitched violently. The second lunged.
Collins barely dodged, grabbing a metal rod to fend it off. Isaac screamed behind him. "Stay close," Collins barked. "Move!" They ran, weaving between rubble and abandoned cars, the infected in relentless pursuit. Dr. Vega's limping pace forced Collins to adjust, slowing for a moment before urging him onward. Each turn brought new horrors. A teacher turned, attacking the students she once protected. A child, half-infected, stumbling and moaning, dragging itself across the street.
Collins' mind raced. Survival was not just escape. It was calculation, quick thinking, and the ability to suppress fear. But Isaac's hand in his own reminded him of what mattered most. His brother's life depended entirely on him, and he would not fail. They reached a partially collapsed building that offered temporary shelter. Collins dragged Isaac inside, shoving a fallen beam against the entrance. Through cracks, he could see the infected moving past, unaware of their hiding place. The small room smelled of mold and decay, but it was a refuge. Collins crouched beside Isaac. "We need to keep moving," he said, voice low. "The coast, that's our goal. Nothing else matters." Dr. Vega nodded, clutching his notebook. "I can guide you, but we have to avoid anyone with authority symbols. Soldiers, police, they won't help. They're part of the problem." Collins' mind reeled. The world was unrecognizable. Trust was a luxury they could not afford. Every human could be a threat. Every decision carried life or death consequences. Hours passed. The trio moved cautiously, navigating through the skeletal streets, avoiding both infected and desperate humans. Collins noticed the moral collapse around them, people fighting over scraps, abandoning the weak, even killing to survive. It was a harsh lesson in survival. Compassion was dangerous. Kindness was a liability. Yet Collins' heart refused to harden entirely. Isaac's hand in his own reminded him of what mattered most. His brother's life depended entirely on him, and he would not fail. As dawn approached, they paused atop a crumbling overpass, overlooking the ruined streets below. Collins could see the expanse of the city, fires flickering like stars in a black void. The infected roamed freely, humans scavenged violently, and the world they had known was gone. This is our reality now," Collins whispered to himself. He glanced at Isaac, sleep from exhaustion, leaning against his chest. "But we keep going, no matter what." Dr. Vega cleared his throat. "The coast is still miles ahead. We have to move before nightfall again. There will be worse than what we've seen." Collins nodded, determination settling in his chest. The city was a battlefield of death and moral decay, but he had a mission: keep Isaac alive, follow Dr. Vega, reach the coast. Every step forward was a promise, every breath a defiance against the chaos consuming Los Angeles. They descended into the streets below, shadows among shadows, moving through the broken veins of a city that no longer belonged to humanity. Collins' pulse raced, fear clawed at him, but the bond with his brother and the mission ahead sharpened his focus. Every step was survival, every moment was a choice. And with that choice, Collins accepted one truth: the city was dead, but they were still alive, and alive was not enough. They had to endure, fight, and survive.
The city gradually gave way to neighborhoods, twisted skeletons of suburban streets. Fires still smoked in the distance, but here the chaos felt quieter, almost deceptive. Collins led Isaac through cracked sidewalks, broken lawns, and abandoned cars. Every corner seemed safer, but he knew better. The quiet before a storm could be deadly. Isaac's small hand was clammy in his own.
The boy had grown pale, exhausted beyond his years. Collins could feel each rapid heartbeat, each shiver, as though he carried Isaac's fear in his chest. "Collins," Isaac whispered, Will we ever see Mom and Dad again?" The question hit Collins like a physical blow. His throat tightened. He couldn't answer honestly. Both of their parents had died in the initial chaos, trapped in traffic when the infection first spread, leaving the boys alone. The memory clawed at him, the smell of smoke, the screams of neighbors, the suffocating panic. I don't know," Collins admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But we have each other. That's what matters now, just us." Isaac nodded, but his eyes were haunted. Collins realized the boy was carrying the grief he couldn't fully shield him from, and Collins too felt it, the weight of responsibility, the gnawing terror that one mistake could mean Isaac's death. He could not fail. As they moved through a cul-de-sac, Collins noticed movement in the shadows. Figures emerged slowly, human for the most part, but ragged, their eyes wide and hollow, hands clutching makeshift weapons. Collins froze, heart hammering. One of them stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a security jacket patched with faded insignia. "Wait," the man said low but calm. "You two. You're alone, right?" Collins tightened his grip on Isaac's hand. "Who are you?" The man lowered his weapon slightly. "Name's Harlow." "Mr. Harlow. I used to work at your school, security." His eyes flicked to Collins's chest, as if gauging his intentions. I know what happened. I know what you're trying to do." Collins' heart jumped. Could he trust him? Another human meant another moral risk. Yet there was something in Harlow's demeanor, something familiar even, comforting. "We're trying to get to the coast," Collins said cautiously. "It's our only chance." Harlow nodded. "I can help you. I know some paths, safer ones, but it's not easy. There are things out there worse than the infected." Collins' stomach clenched. "We don't have a choice." Harlow motioned them forward. As they walked through the empty streets, Collins couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every rustle, every twitch of a shadow made him flinch. They passed houses stripped bare, doors hanging off hinges, windows shattered. In some yards, twisted figures lurched, attacking anything alive. Hours passed, and exhaustion began to settle like a stone in Collins's chest. His legs ached, his lungs burned, but he forced himself onward. Isaac stumbled once, and Collins caught him, feeling the weight of the boy as though he were fragile porcelain. Every moment was a battle, every step a risk.
The courtyard was a fragile island of temporary safety, but Collins knew it could not last. Every shadow could conceal the infected, every rustle of debris a threat. He kept Isaac close, scanning the edges where the sunlight caught on broken glass and twisted metal. Harlow moved behind them, limping but still alert, eyes constantly scanning the dark corners. "They're everywhere," Isaac whispered, clutching Collins' arm. "I don't want to die." Collins swallowed the lump in his throat. "You won't," he said, voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "I promise. I'll keep you alive. Always." The promise felt heavier than ever. The city around them had become a maze of corpses, abandoned vehicles, and charred buildings. Collins' ears picked up every sound, the distant groans of the infected, the occasional scream of humans turning on each other, and the ominous shuffle of Harlow's own footsteps. Something was off. As they approached the far end of the courtyard, Harlow stopped suddenly, grimacing. Collins glanced back. Blood had streaked down Harlow's sleeve, dark and wet against the faded security jacket.
His face was pale, lips trembling. "I'm not right," Harlow admitted, voice low. "I got bitten earlier, trying to cover your escape. I didn't want you to know." Colin's heart dropped. He could see the subtle twitching in Harlow's left arm, the faint pallor spreading across his face. His stomach churned. "You what? No!" Harlow shook his head, forcing a weak smile. "It's too late for me. You need to get Isaac out, to the coast. I can't." Collins felt a surge of helplessness and anger, but there was no time for grief. Not here. Not now. He gritted his teeth. "We're not leaving you." Harlow's hand pressed against Collins' shoulder. "You have to. There's only one chance. Take him. Survive. Promise me." His eyes held a mixture of sorrow and urgency. Collins clenched his fists. Isaac pressed closer to him, sensing the tension, his small body trembling. Collins swallowed the bile rising in his throat. Survival demanded sacrifice, but his heart ached at the thought of leaving Harlow behind. The first of the infected emerged from the shadows, drawn by the scent of blood. Harlow's eyes flicked toward them. "Go! Now!" Collins grabbed Isaac, dragging him toward the exit. Behind them, the sounds of struggle erupted. Harlow fighting the horde, grunting, swinging, screaming. Collins risked a glance over his shoulder and saw the scene. Harlow, bitten and staggering, holding the creatures at bay long enough for the brothers to flee. The sight burned itself into Collins' memory. They stumbled into a narrow alley, lungs burning, hearts hammering. Collins clutched Isaac's hand tightly, scanning the street ahead. Fires burned here too, but the path was clearer. The sun glinted off the water in the distance, a faint, shimmering promise. The coast was close. Isaac's voice broke the tense silence. "Collins, will he be okay?" Collins swallowed hard, fighting to keep his emotions in check. He saved us. That's all that matters now. We have to keep moving." The journey through the alley was brutal. Collapsing roofs, burning vehicles, and the occasional twitch of a corpse forced Collins to duck, jump, and push Isaac along. The boy's exhaustion was evident. He stumbled multiple times, and Collins caught him each time, muscles burning, lungs screaming. They reached a higher vantage point, a crumbling overpass that offered a view of the water beyond. The sight of the coast brought a surge of hope, but also a sharp pang of fear. The city behind them was still crawling with death, and the streets ahead were uncharted. Collins pressed a hand to Isaac's back. "Look," he said softly, pointing. "The water. We're almost there. We made it this far. Nothing can stop us now." Isaac's eyes widened as he saw the glimmer of the ocean, exhaustion momentarily forgotten. He pressed closer to Collins. We really going?" "Yes," he whispered. "We're getting out. We're surviving. Together." They moved onward, navigating the last stretch of the neighborhood with caution. The streets were littered with bodies, both human and infected. Collins forced himself to step over each one without looking, focusing only on Isaac and the glimmering horizon. As they reached the edge of the city, Collins paused, taking a deep breath. The sky above was streaked with smoke and ash, but the sun reflected off the water like a beacon. Behind them lay chaos, death, and sacrifice. Ahead lay uncertain safety, but safety nonetheless. Collins knelt beside Isaac, brushing soot and blood from his brother's face. "We made it, this far, and we'll keep going, no matter what." Isaac nodded, exhausted but clinging to hope. Collins felt a mix of relief and sorrow, knowing Harlow had given his life to make this possible.
The memory of Harlow's sacrifice pressed against his chest, a reminder of the cost of survival. The brothers pressed onward, moving toward the coast. Colin's mind raced with plans, strategies, and the unshakable promise to protect Isaac, no matter the cost. The night behind them had been a trial. The day ahead would be another. But for the first time, Collins allowed himself a small flicker of hope. They had survived the broken streets, faced death, and emerged closer to safety than ever before. The coast stretched out before them, a fragile promise amid the ruin of a city that had been consumed by fire, chaos, and the undead. Collins held Isaac's hand tightly, feeling the warmth, the pulse, the life that he had sworn to protect. And for now, that was enough.
The port sprawled before them like a graveyard of steel and shadow. Shipping containers lay in crooked stacks, cranes loomed like skeletal giants, and the smell of salt water mixed with diesel and rot. Fires burned in random corners, flickering across broken vehicles and the twisted remains of cargo. Collins led Isaac through the chaos, sweat stinging his eyes, heart hammering. This is worse than the city," Isaac whispered, voice trembling. "Everyone's fighting." Collins glanced around. Men and women armed with anything from bats to rifles were scrambling over containers, dragging bodies, hoarding supplies. Shouts and gunfire echoed across the water. The infected were here too, mingling with humans, feeding indiscriminately. Survival was no longer about zombies alone. It was about humanity, stripped to its basest instincts. Collins pulled Isaac behind a container, crouching low. "Keep quiet. Stay down. We move only when it's safe." The boy pressed close, eyes wide. Collins could feel the rapid pulse of fear beneath his hand. They waited, watching a group of armed men wrest a backpack from a scavenger, pushing him off a platform into the water below. The sound of the splash and the man's muffled scream made Collins' stomach churn. Why do people do this?" Isaac whispered. "Because fear, desperation, it makes monsters out of people too," Collins muttered, voice tight. "We can't be like them." They moved carefully, slipping between shadows, scanning for anything useful. That's when they saw him. Dr. Vega's notebook, clutched by a man with a rifle negotiating with another gang member. Colin's stomach sank. That notebook contained the truth about the outbreak, about the plane, about the engineered virus. If it fell into the wrong hands, the consequences were unimaginable. A plan formed in Colin's mind. He would need courage, cunning, and speed. Isaac's small hand squeezed his own, anchoring him. He could not fail. Collins crouched behind a stack of containers, assessing the terrain. The armed men were tense, scanning the area. Shadows shifted constantly. Another gang, perhaps. A child screamed somewhere in the distance, and Collins heard the unmistakable splatter of blood. The world here had no mercy, no rules. Suddenly, one of the gang members spotted them. "Hey, over here!" He raised his weapon, shouting. Collins grabbed Isaac, ducking. His bullets thudded into steel, ricocheting sparks into the air. The boy screamed, clutching his ears. "Move! Now!" Collins shouted, dragging Isaac along. They sprinted across a narrow gap between containers, hearts pounding, adrenaline burning. Behind them, gunfire echoed. The port had become a war zone. They stumbled into a container yard, stacked high with crates. Collins pressed Isaac behind a stack, trying to catch his breath. He could hear the men approaching, their boots clanging on metal. Collins peeked around the edge, noting a small gap in the fence, an exit, just far enough to reach if they timed it right. "Isaac, listen to me. On 3, we run. You keep your head down, do exactly as I say." The boy pressed close, trembling but obedient. Collins counted silently. 1, 2, 3. They bolted. Collins pulled Isaac, dodging a hail of bullets. Sparks flew, metal clanged, and a crate toppled beside them.
Colin's heart hammered, muscles screaming, but he forced himself forward. The gap in the fence was close. A hand grabbed Colin's shoulder, another gang member. He swung violently, the man grunting as Collins used him as leverage to push Isaac through first. Collins followed, barely escaping a knife swipe. They tumbled onto the other side, gasping, hearts racing. Behind them, the chaos continued. Gunfire, screams, and the indistinguishable groans of the infected. They had survived this encounter, but Collins knew the danger was far from over. Breathing heavily, Collins pulled Isaac to his side. We did it. We're still alive." Isaac looked up, tears streaming down his dirt-streaked face. You saved me." Collins forced a small, tired smile. "I promised. I will always keep my promise." But even as hope flickered, Collins' mind raced. The notebook, the gangs, the port, it was clear the harbor was a nest of predatory humans, and the real test of survival had only begun.
The alleyways of the container yard reeked of diesel, salt, and blood. Collins clutched Isaac's hand as they crept toward the next gap in the stacks. His heart hammered, not just from fear, but from the knowledge that every step brought them closer to human predators as dangerous as the infected. Ahead, the gang had regrouped. Collins could see them arguing, weapons waving, and the notebook, Dr. Vega's precious evidence, sitting atop a container, nearly forgotten in the chaos. But one man spotted them. "Over there," the man shouted, raising a rifle. Collins felt a surge of panic. He shoved Isaac down behind a crate. Bullets pinged off steel. Sparks danced in the air. Collins's lungs burned, but he forced himself to think. He peeked around the edge. One of the gang members, a bulky man with scars crisscrossing his face, held the notebook. Collins realized the man didn't even know its contents. He only saw value. Collins' mind raced. He had to get it back. Suddenly, movement behind another stack drew his attention. A man stumbled into view, clutching a child's hand. Isaac could barely hear the boy whimper. The man's face twisted with desperation. Collins recognized the instinct, a parent searching for a lost child. Collins' thoughts collided, survival versus morality. He couldn't leave Isaac exposed, but perhaps he could use this father's desperation to their advantage. Slowly, Collins maneuvered closer, using crates as cover. The gang member with the notebook was distracted by a sudden scuffle. Collins lunged, grabbing the book. The man swung a crowbar. Collins ducked, rolling to his feet. Isaac pressed against him. He swung the pipe he carried, connecting with a thud. The man dropped, twitching, and Collins snatched the notebook, clutching it to his chest. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing Isaac's hand. The father appeared beside them, eyes wide. Collins hesitated for a moment. The man reached for his child. Collins nodded. "Take him. Go. Go now." The father grabbed the child, sprinting toward safety. In that instant, Collins realized that even in the harbor of shadows, human kindness could still flicker through desperation. They ran through the labyrinth of containers, bullets ricocheting, shouts echoing, but Collins' determination drove him forward. Isaac stumbled once, and Collins caught him mid-fall. "Keep moving! We're almost out!" Finally, they reached a narrow channel leading to a dock. Fires licked the horizon, reflecting off the water. The sounds of the gangs faded behind them, replaced by the lapping of waves and the faint cries of distant survivors. Collins allowed himself a deep breath. They had survived, not just the infected, but humans willing to kill for scraps. Isaac leaned against Collins, exhausted but alive. You saved me again." Collins held him close, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Always. I promised." They paused at the edge of the dock, the ocean stretching before them, glimmering under the dying sun. The notebook pressed against Collins' chest, a tangible reminder of the truth they carried and the danger that still lurked. The harbor had tested them in ways the city never could, but it had also reaffirmed something essential: their bond, their survival instinct, and the promise that Collins would protect Isaac at any cost. Collins took a deep breath, looking at the horizon. Beyond the harbor lay the Coast Guard station, their next hope, their next challenge. The infected, the gangs, the moral chaos of humanity, all of it was behind them, at least for now. Ahead was uncertain safety and the knowledge that the world would never be the same. With Isaac clutching his hand, Collins stepped onto the edge of the dock, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would survive, no matter the cost.
The city burned behind them, flames licking the sky, sending smoke spiraling into the darkening clouds. Collins' legs ached with exhaustion, muscles screaming from the relentless journey through streets, alleys, and now the harbor. Isaac's small hand gripped his tightly, his face streaked with soot, tears, and the grime of survival. Collins scanned the skyline. The Coast Guard station was visible, a faint light glinting across the water, but the path was treacherous. The bridge leading there was partially collapsed, its supports twisted like the bones of some massive beast. Beyond it, the city stretched, a graveyard of fire, ash, and moaning infected. As they moved cautiously through the ruined streets, Isaac froze. Collins noticed him crouched beside a crumbling wall, his eyes wide. "What is it?" Collins whispered, crouching beside him. A small whimper came from the shadows. A tiny, mangy puppy, filthy and trembling, peeked out from under debris. Its fur was singed in places, and its little paws were bloody, but its eyes, bright, terrified, locked onto Isaac. Isaac's face lit up. "Collins, can we save him?" Collins hesitated. Every ounce of survival training told him not to slow down, not to risk carrying extra weight. But Isaac's pleading eyes were enough. "All right," he said softly, quickly, "but stay close." Isaac scooped up the small dog, cradling it gently against his chest. The puppy whimpered, pressing into him as if it had found its savior. Collins felt a surge of protective instinct, not just for Isaac, but now for the little creature in his brother's arms. "Let's go," he said, guiding them toward the bridge. The bridge was a nightmare. Sections had collapsed entirely, leaving jagged gaps over the dark water below. Smoke and fire from nearby explosions painted the structure in flickering orange light. The wind carried the scent of diesel, ash, and burning wood. Every step could be their last. Collins tested each plank, keeping a tight grip on Isaac. The boy's small hands clutched the puppy and Collins' arm, a bundle of vulnerability and hope. Halfway across, a distant rumble shook the bridge. Military jets streaked overhead, bombing zones to contain the infected. Debris rained down around them. Collins ducked instinctively, shielding Isaac and the puppy. The bridge trembled beneath their feet. "Almost there," he muttered, forcing calm into his voice. "Keep going." They reached the first gap, a wide chasm where the planks had broken away entirely. Collins scanned the ruins. "We can jump," he said. "Hold the puppy tight, Isaac. We do this together." Isaac's eyes were wide with fear, but he nodded. Collins crouched, letting the boy jump first, guiding him across. The puppy yipped, ears back, pressed against Isaac. Collins jumped after, landing hard on the other side. His knees buckled, but he caught himself. Breathing heavily, they moved on, adrenaline propelling them forward. Collins noticed that the puppy, despite its exhaustion, kept whining softly, nuzzling Isaac's chest. Isaac's face broke into a small, rare smile. "Collins, he's okay," Isaac whispered. "Yes, he's okay because of you," Collins said, voice tight. The final stretch of the bridge loomed ahead. Flames licked the supports, smoke thickened, and the roar of destruction filled their ears. Then from the shadows below, the moans of infected rose, a new threat drawn to the vibrations of collapsing metal. Collins' heart pounded. Ahead, a figure appeared, rifle in hand. Lieutenant Moore, a hardened Coast Guard officer, emerged from the smoke, scanning the bridge. "Hold still," he shouted, waving them over. Collins ran, dragging Isaac and the puppy toward more. Behind them, a section of the bridge gave way with a deafening crash, sending twisted metal and fire plummeting into the dark water below. Collins felt the ground shake beneath him, but Moore grabbed Isaac and the puppy, then Collins, hauling them across the final few feet. They collapsed on the far side, coughing, shaking, but alive. The puppy squirmed in Isaac's arms, licking his face, providing a fragile comfort in the midst of destruction. Moore looked at them, exhaustion and relief in his eyes. "You made it! Barely, but you're alive." Collins nodded, chest heaving. We couldn't leave each other behind." He glanced at Isaac, who hugged the puppy tightly. "And neither could he," Collins said softly, thinking of the small life they had saved amidst the chaos. The Coast Guard station, though still partially operational, was alive with tension. Evacuation plans, injured survivors, and armed personnel moved frantically. Collins knew the next stretch of survival, getting Isaac and the puppy aboard a ship, would be just as treacherous. But for the first time, a flicker of hope pushed aside some of the fear. The puppy yipped again, soft and insistent, pressing against Isaac's chest. Collins realized that in a world gone mad, small acts of protection, small lives saved, were what kept them human. He had promised to protect his brother, and now, silently, he promised to protect the little creature as well. They rested briefly, gathering strength before stepping into the chaos of the station, hearts pounding, muscles aching, but together, and with a small new companion to remind them that even in horror, life endured.
The bridge trembled beneath them, groaning like an old beast in agony. Collins' arms ached from carrying Isaac at times, but now the boy limped slightly, fatigue pulling him down. The puppy whimpered, pressed tightly against Isaac's chest, as if sensing the danger in the air. "Keep moving," Collins muttered, forcing his voice calm, though his heart hammered. Each plank, each beam could snap at any moment. Explosions from military strikes shook the structure, sending sparks and burning debris raining around them. Ahead, a section of the bridge had completely collapsed. Only twisted steel and jagged remnants remained, a yawning chasm over the dark waters below. Collins scanned frantically. There was no turning back. Lieutenant Moore appeared beside them, rifle slung across his back, eyes sharp and calculating. "We can make it. Jump together. Keep Isaac steady," he barked. Collins swallowed fear and focused. He crouched, motioning Isaac to do the same, holding the puppy with one arm, the boy's hand in the other. "We jump on 3, Collins whispered. 1, 2, 3. They leaped. Collins landed hard, knees buckling, scraping against jagged metal, but he held on to Isaac as the puppy yipped, pressing against them. Moore followed, landing with a grunt, stabilizing them both. Behind them, the bridge groaned and collapsed further, fire and sparks raining down, but they were alive, barely. Isaac sagged against Collins, trembling. "Collins, my leg!" Collins inspected it quickly. Scrapes, bruises, nothing broken, but the boy was exhausted. He scooped Isaac up, holding him tightly, cradling the puppy against his chest as well. "You're okay, we're almost there," he said, voice trembling but firm. The city burned around them. Flames illuminated the sky, smoke carried acrid stench, and distant cries of the infected mixed with the sounds of collapsing structures. Collins' chest heaved. They had survived the streets, the harbor, and now the bridge, but the danger wasn't over. Moore led them toward the station. "Quickly, evacuation is boarding now. They'll leave in minutes," he said, scanning the ruined city for threats. As they approached the station, a group of infected emerged from a nearby alley, drawn by the sounds of movement. Collins froze, calculating. There was no time to fight. He clutched Isaac and the puppy closer. "Follow me," Moore shouted, firing his rifle, drawing their attention just long enough for Collins to dash forward. Bullets pinged and groans of metal echoed, but Collins focused on one goal: reach the ship. They stumbled onto the pier. The evacuation ship loomed large, its lights cutting through smoke and ash. Crew shouted orders, pulling survivors aboard. Collins sprinted, adrenaline surging, carrying Isaac and the puppy. Each step was agony, but he refused to let fear win. A sudden explosion rocked the pier. Wood splintered, metal twisted. Collins felt the heat on his back, the pressure of falling debris. He dove, shielding Isaac and the puppy. Moore shouted from behind, returning fire at the infected who had breached the dock. Collins scrambled to his feet. The ship's ramp was just meters away. Crew hands reached down, pulling survivors up. He handed the puppy first to Isaac. "Hold him tight. Never let go," Collins said, voice breaking. Isaac nodded, clutching the small life against his chest. Then Collins swung Isaac up into the waiting hands of a crew member. Moore helped Collins onto the ramp next, and the puppy yipped happily, safe in Isaac's arms. From behind, explosions and chaos consumed the pier. Collins turned his eyes to see Moore, still fighting off the infected, keeping the path clear. Then, a final roar, a massive blast threw debris and fire into the air. Moore gave a last determined look at Collins. "Go!" he shouted. Collins didn't hesitate. He surged onto the ship, slumping to the deck, gasping for breath. Isaac clutched the puppy to his chest, eyes wide but safe. Collins wrapped an arm around his brother. "Moore," Collins whispered, dread pressing at his chest. The officer's silhouette was swallowed by smoke and fire as the ship began to move, cutting away from the burning city. Collins held Isaac and the puppy tightly, listening to the roar of engines, feeling the swell of the sea beneath them. The city, once a battlefield of death and moral collapse, faded into the distance. Isaac whispered softly, You kept your promise, Collins." Collins kissed the top of his brother's head. "Always, no matter what," he said, closing his eyes, letting relief wash over him for the first time in days. The puppy yipped again, nudging Isaac's hand, a small heartbeat of life and hope. In the midst of grief, destruction, and moral collapse, Collins realized that survival was not just about escaping death. It was about carrying humanity forward, protecting life, love, and innocence, no matter how small or fragile. The ship sailed into the horizon, smoke trailing behind, carrying the brothers and the little puppy toward an uncertain future. For the first time, Collins allowed himself to believe they might survive not just the apocalypse, but the darkness it had brought out in the world. Yet somewhere in the distance, beyond the sunlit waves, lurked the lingering threat of the outbreak, reminding Collins that survival was only the beginning. The evacuation ship groaned under the weight of survivors, the engine straining as it cut through the churning sea. Collins clutched Isaac tightly. The boy pressed against his chest. The puppy nestled safely in Isaac's arms. The little creature yipped occasionally, a fragile heartbeat of life amid the storm of chaos. But the danger was far from over. Smoke still drifted from the burning city, and the distant groans of the infected carried on the wind. More terrifying, Collins realized, were the infected soldiers, once disciplined men and women, now twisted by the virus, carrying weapons and trained to kill. The ship's deck bucked as it rocked against waves, and Collins scanned for threats. Through the haze, he saw them, figures moving like shadows, some already limping and twitching unnaturally, yet armed, eyes dead yet focused. "We need to get them to the hold," Collins muttered, voice tight. He shifted Isaac slightly, holding the puppy closer. Each step was a careful calculation, One misstep could mean their end. Isaac whimpered softly. "Collins, I'm scared." Collins kissed the top of his brother's head. "I know. I'm scared too, but I won't let anything happen to you. Not now, not ever." The puppy yipped in response, as if echoing his promise. Collins took a deep breath, moving toward the stairwell leading below deck. Shadows flickered, a warning of danger waiting. Suddenly, a soldier lunged from behind a crate, infected eyes glinting, rifle aimed directly at Collins. Collins shoved Isaac behind him, swinging a steel pipe connecting with the soldier's head. The impact sent a spray of blood across the deck. The puppy yipped in fear but stayed pressed against Isaac. Another soldier advanced. Collins ducked under the barrel of a rifle, grabbing Isaac and spinning him out of harm's way. The puppy squirmed, whining, and Collins pressed it into Isaac's arms again. "Hold on tight," he shouted, swinging the pipe in wide arcs, keeping the infected at bay. Then he heard Moore's voice, strong and commanding. "Collins! Left side! I've got them!" The officer appeared, firing methodically, each shot precise. Collins risked a glance. Moore was covering their escape, moving with lethal efficiency, even as the infection gnawed at the soldier's humanity. Collins moved Isaac and the puppy toward the hold, ducking, dodging, swinging, heart hammering. The smell of blood, gunpowder, and salt water burned his lungs. Every step was survival. Every moment was a test. Halfway to the stairwell, Collins tripped, skidding across the wet deck. He caught himself, but the puppy slipped from Isaac's arms, tumbling across the metal floor. Isaac gasped, reaching for it. Collins lunged, scooping both the boy and the puppy into his arms. "I've got you," he gasped, teeth gritted against exhaustion. The infected soldiers closed in, relentless. Collins' muscles screamed, but he moved with singular focus. Protect Isaac, protect the puppy, survive. Moore's voice shouted again, firing at the approaching threats. Collins saw him stagger, then fall. Time slowed. The officer had taken the brunt of an attack, shielding Collins and Isaac. Collins' stomach lurched. "More!" he yelled, but there was no time to stop. Collins clutched Isaac and the puppy tighter, tears blurring his vision. "We'll survive, because he gave us this chance," he whispered, voice trembling. Pain, fear, and grief collided, but he forced himself onward. The stairwell loomed. Collins bounded toward it, descending quickly. Isaac clung to him, puppy pressed against his chest. Below deck, chaos persisted. Other survivors, screams, smoke, but it was marginally safer than the deck above. Collins pressed against the wall, catching his breath. Isaac hugged the puppy tightly, face buried in its fur. Collins looked at them, heart swelling with love and exhaustion. The little creature, once lost and trembling in the harbor streets, had become their symbol of hope, a reminder of innocence, of life worth protecting even amid horror. "See?" Collins said softly, brushing Isaac's hair back. "We made it. We're alive. Together." Isaac looked up, eyes shimmering. "Thanks, Collins, for keeping your promise." Collins swallowed hard, nodding. "Always. Always." A distant rumble shook the ship. Explosions rocked the deck above. Collins' chest tightened. The world was still dangerous, still burning, still crawling with monsters, human and infected alike. But for now, they were together, alive. And the puppy, small, warm, and trembling in Isaac's arms, reminded him of the stakes worth fighting for. Collins adjusted his grip on Isaac. "We're going to survive this, no matter what," he said, voice firm, eyes scanning for the next danger. And in that fleeting moment, amid smoke, blood, and chaos, Collins understood the depth of his oath. Protect his brother, protect the fragile sparks of life they found along the way, and never, ever let the darkness win.
The ship pitched violently as another explosion rocked the deck. Collins staggered, muscles screaming. Isaac pressed tightly against him, with the puppy clutched to his chest. The little creature whimpered, ears flattened, but remained calm in Isaac's embrace, a fragile heartbeat of innocence amid the chaos. Collins scanned frantically. The infected soldiers had breached the lower deck, shuffling forward with mechanical precision. Their eyes were dead, yet their movements lethal. More had gone ahead to cover their escape. Collins's stomach dropped when he saw the officer's silhouette, standing alone against the horde, firing methodically, but clearly exhausted. "No!" Collins shouted, desperation clawing at him. "More!" Isaac trembled against him. "Collins, he's going to die!" Collins pressed a hand to the boy's back. "Stay calm. Hold the puppy tight. We move when we can. We survive together." Moore's voice rang out across the chaos, commanding and calm despite the situation. "Get them to the hold. I'll cover you." Collins nodded, tightening his grip on Isaac and the puppy. He moved with precision, every step calculated, dodging debris, sparks, and the twitching hands of the infected. A steel beam collapsed behind them, the sound deafening, but Collins refused to look back. His only focus was survival. They reached the stairwell leading below deck. Collins descended first, holding Isaac and the puppy against him. The boy clung desperately, the little dog pressed to his chest, whimpering softly. Collins could hear the chaos above, the groans of infected, gunfire, explosions. Then a terrible silence fell. Collins risked a glance upward. Moore had stepped into the open to draw the infected away, firing with precision. A sudden explosion threw the officer off balance. Collins' heart stopped. He saw Moore turn, cover the brother's escape with his body, as a grenade's blast consumed the upper deck. "No!" Collins shouted, desperation clawing at him. "Moore!" Isaac trembled against him. "Collins, he's going to die!" Collins hugged both tightly, heart pounding, body trembling. He pressed them close, whispering, "We'll survive, because he gave us this chance. Always remember that." The ship rocked again, but the hold was relatively secure. Other survivors were huddled in corners, fear etched on their faces. Collins pressed Isaac to a wall, kneeling beside him, brushing dirt and soot from his brother's hair. The puppy whimpered, nuzzling Isaac's chest. Collins smiled faintly through exhaustion. In a world of death and moral collapse, the small creature had become a symbol of hope. If life could endure in this tiny form, maybe humanity could endure too. Isaac looked up. Tears streaked across his dirty face. "You kept your promise, Collins!" Collins hugged him tightly. "Always," he whispered. "Always." Outside, the city continued to burn, smoke trailing into the distance. Collins watched the horizon, muscles aching, heart heavy with grief for Moore and everyone lost. The officer's sacrifice had ensured their survival, but it left a raw ache in Collins's chest. He pressed a hand against Isaac's back, then to the puppy, drawing them close. Life, fragile, precious, was all that remained. The ship's engines roared as it cut through the water, leaving the burning city behind. Collins clutched Isaac and the puppy, feeling the sway of the deck beneath him. The world was still dangerous, still scarred, but they had survived the worst. For the first time in days, Collins allowed himself a moment to breathe. The puppy yipped softly, tail wagging in Isaac's arms. The little life, rescued in the harbor streets, had become a quiet anchor of hope, a reminder that even amid horror, small acts of compassion mattered. Collins kissed the top of Isaac's head, brushing soot and blood from his brother's hair. "We made it this far, and we'll keep going," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "No matter what comes next, we survive together." Isaac hugged the puppy tighter, pressing it against his chest. Collins smiled faintly, tears streaming down his face. "Always," he repeated, knowing that the bond they shared, the brotherly oath, the fragile spark of life in the puppy, would carry them forward.
Beyond the horizon, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in orange and purple streaks. The city behind them was a graveyard, but the ship carried life, hope, and the promise of tomorrow. Collins held Isaac, the puppy, and the memory of Moore's sacrifice close. The apocalypse had claimed much, but they had survived. And in the silence of the waves, Collins swore silently, no matter what horrors awaited, he would protect his brother, the puppy, and the flickering embers of humanity until his last breath.
The sea stretched endlessly, silver waves catching the light of a sinking sun. Collins sat on the cold deck of the evacuation ship, his back against the railing, Isaac asleep against his chest, the puppy curled in the boy's arms. The little creature's soft breathing, the steady rhythm of Isaac's heartbeat, it was all Collins had, all that reminded him that life endured. The city they had left behind was gone from view, a smoldering scar on the horizon. Fires still burned faintly, distant groans of the infected carried on the wind, but the chaos, for now, was behind them. Collins closed his eyes, letting exhaustion wash over him. Muscle aches, bruises, burns, grief, they all weighed him down, but he welcomed it. It was proof that they had survived. He remembered Moore's sacrifice in sharp detail, the officer standing against the infected, ensuring the brothers' escape. Collins' throat tightened, and he swallowed hard. He had promised to protect Isaac, but Moore had given them a chance that Collins could never repay. He pressed a hand to the boy's hair, then to the puppy, and whispered, "We carry him with us, always." The puppy stirred, lifting its tiny head, sniffing the air, ears perking as if sensing Collins' thoughts. Isaac stirred as well, blinking sleep from his eyes. He looked down at the little creature, then up at Collins. "Collins, he's so cute," Isaac whispered, voice hushed. Collins smiled faintly. "Yeah, he is. We found him when he was lost, just like we almost were." Isaac hugged the puppy tighter, warmth radiating through his small body. Collins realized then how much this tiny life meant, not just as a companion, but as a tangible reminder of our humanity, of compassion, even in a world gone mad. The ship's engines hummed steadily, carrying them toward South Africa, toward safety, toward a new beginning. But Collins knew the world would never be the same. The virus, the outbreak, the collapse of order, it had left scars too deep to erase. Survivors like them were rare. Those who had not been consumed by the infected had been consumed by fear, by brutality, by the desperate moral decay that had emerged in cities and harbors. Collins looked down at Isaac. His face, smeared with soot and dried tears, reminded him of their parents, of the home they had lost, of the innocence that the outbreak had tried to steal. Collins' chest tightened with grief, but he forced himself to breathe. He had survived, and Isaac had survived. Together, they would endure. The puppy yipped softly, nudging Isaac's arm. Collins chuckled, a faint, brittle sound. "You keep reminding us," he said softly, "that life is still worth protecting." He thought of the burned city behind them, the bridges they had crossed, the harbor, the gangs, Moore's sacrifice, and the endless nights of fear. The journey had been brutal, unforgiving, and cruel, but every step had strengthened the bond between him and his brother. Isaac had been his anchor, his reason to fight, and the puppy was now an emblem of hope, proof that even the smallest life could survive and bring joy. Collins leaned back, staring at the horizon. The orange glow of sunset gave way to twilight. Stars began to prick the sky, faint and distant. He thought of the reports Dr. Vega had whispered in his ear about the virus, the plane, the secrets buried in the chaos. The world was still dangerous, still teetering on the brink. But for tonight, Collins allowed himself a moment of peace. He had kept his promise. Isaac was safe, and the little puppy, small and fragile, was too. In the darkness, in the quiet hum of the engines, there was still life, there was still hope.
The puppy stirred again, murmuring softly. Collins kissed the top of his hair. "We'll rest. Tomorrow we keep moving. We survive. We live." Isaac tightened his hold on the puppy, who snuggled into his chest. Collins watched them both, marveling at their resilience. Even in a world that had been reduced to ashes and terror, small sparks endured. And as long as he could protect those sparks, Collins knew he could endure too. Far ahead, the ship cut across the silver waves. The world behind them was destroyed, scarred, haunted, but the horizon ahead was a blank slate. Collins let his thoughts wander, imagining safety, food, shelter, maybe even laughter again. The puppy yipped softly, as if encouraging them forward, a small reminder that life persisted even in the darkest times. And somewhere in that vast, endless sea, Collins swore he would carry the lessons of survival, the memories of loss, and the sparks of hope forward, because survival was not just escaping death, it was living, protecting, and remembering what it meant to be human.
The ship slowed as it neared the South African coast, the waves calmer now, the roar of destruction left far behind. Collins kept Isaac and the puppy close, scanning the shoreline for any signs of danger. Smoke trailed in the distance, evidence that even far from Los Angeles, the world was fractured, scarred, and still dangerous. The crew guided them to a small pier. Other survivors huddled in groups, eyes wary, clothing torn, faces streaked with soot and blood. Collins felt the familiar tightening of fear in his chest, but he forced himself to breathe, to focus on the present. Isaac pressed the puppy against his chest, the little dog snuggling into him, a tiny, warm heartbeat of normalcy in a fractured world. A medic approached, checking the survivors for injuries. Collins held Isaac's hand as the medic examined him. Scrapes, bruises, and exhaustion, but nothing life-threatening. The puppy whimpered softly, and Isaac petted him gently, whispering, "We're okay now, little guy. You're safe." Collins smiled faintly, despite the ache in his chest. "We've made it this far. That's what matters." The brothers were led to a makeshift camp behind the pier, tents and temporary shelters providing scant protection from the elements. The smell of salt, fire, and human sweat mingled in the air. Collins surveyed the scene, survivors scavenging for supplies, injured men and women being tended to, children huddled with makeshift blankets. The world was broken, but life persisted. Isaac collapsed against him, the puppy still cradled in his arms. Collins sat beside him, brushing hair from the boy's face. "You did well. We survived everything because we stayed together." The puppy yipped softly, nudging Isaac, as if echoing Collins' words. In that small living bundle, Collins found a reminder of hope, proof that even in a world scarred by death and fear, life could endure. Collins allowed himself to reflect. The journey had been brutal. The crash plane, the infected, the collapsing city, the harbor gangs, the bridges, Moore's sacrifice. Every step had tested his body, his mind, his morality. But in the end, they had survived. And that survival carried a responsibility to protect life, to honor those lost, and to move forward. Isaac stirred, looking up at him with wide eyes. "Collins, will we ever go home?" Collins swallowed hard. The concept of home had changed, just as the world had changed. "Home, I don't know, but we have each other. And for now, that's enough." He brushed Isaac's cheek gently, then looked down at the puppy, who nuzzled against the boy's chest. "We'll make a new home, little guy," he said softly. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of pink and gold. Survivors began to settle, tending fires, sharing meager food, repairing what little they could. Collins watched, taking in the quiet resilience. Even here, in this temporary refuge, humanity clung on. Later, as darkness fell,
Collins found a quiet corner of the camp. Isaac slept in his arms, the puppy nestled against them both. Collins' gaze swept over the dark sea, waves reflecting starlight, the horizon stretching endlessly. He thought of more, of the lives lost, of the chaos left behind, and of the journey still ahead. The virus, the infected, the global threat, it had not ended. The world was still dangerous. But here, for this moment, there was peace. Collins allowed himself to close his eyes, holding Isaac and the puppy close. Survival was not just escaping death, it was protecting what was left, carrying forward the fragile threads of humanity, and honoring those who had sacrificed everything to ensure life continued. A faint yelp from the puppy stirred him. Isaac mumbled in his sleep, hugging it closer. Collins smiled faintly through exhaustion, brushing his fingers over the tiny head. In this small act of care, he felt the full weight of what they had endured, and the hope that despite everything, the future still held the possibility of life, love, and survival. The ship's lights glimmered faintly in the distance, guiding other survivors to temporary safety. Collins held Isaac tighter, the puppy nestled between them, and whispered a silent vow. He would protect them, the fragile life they carried, and the hope that it represented. No matter what came next, no matter how dark the world became, he would keep that promise. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the faint glimmer of a new beginning waited, along with the sobering truth that the world's threats were far from over. Collins let the weight of grief and relief mingle in his chest, knowing that survival was only the first step. The journey of carrying humanity forward was just begun. Isaac shifted in his sleep, murmuring softly, and the puppy yipped in response, pressing into his chest. Collins tightened his hold, letting exhaustion wash over him. The past was a scar, the present fragile, and the future uncertain. But for now, they had each other, and in that, there was hope.